Hare Krishna. I am most grateful to be amongst you once again. A few days back, I was sitting on a rock on the banks of the river Ganga in the foothills of the Himalayas. Quietly chanting Krishna's holy names, looking at the most beautiful current of Ganga Mai as she was rippling and swirling, creating most beautiful art. Every moment of the swishing of her waves was like a masterpiece. And there were unlimited such masterpieces being created at every moment. But as soon as they were created, they disappeared. Like nature, Mother Ganga is always. Her current continuously flows. But every manifestation is constantly changing. Nothing is stable. By the powers of time, at every moment, everything is changing. Cannot hold on to anything. But if we can just take shelter of the current of truth, rather than the ever-changing appearances, then we can find everlasting happiness. Janmadhyasa yataha. Krishna is that eternal truth, the Supreme Lord. The background of everything that exists. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. Krishna says, I am the source of all material and all spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise, who know this perfectly, worship me with all their hearts. According to Bhagavad Gita, this is the definition of wisdom. To know how Krishna is the eternal truth, that is the foundation of everything that exists. And He is the all-loving Supreme Person. And to worship Him with all our hearts. Seeing the beauty of Mother Ganga, I looked upon the Himalayan mountains. Each tree looked like it was an antenna just emitting divine energy. I looked into the sky, very clear, blue, rich blue summer sky. And high above was a hawk, soaring through the airways with the confidence of an emperor, scanning with his green eyes over the river. His reddish-brown feathers shining in the sun. He hovered lower, lower, and even lower. Soon he was only a few yards above my head. Suddenly, he plunged into the river. And I saw some struggle taking place. And hardly moments later, he emerged from the river with a fish in his talons or claws, flapping and struggling for its dear life. The hawk effortlessly flew into the horizon with the fish. So I was thinking about what I had just seen. How each and every one of us is like that fish. The little fish, he was maybe a foot long. He knew nothing except life in a river. You know, down there below the current of the Ganges, they don't have these travel log television stations that show you all different parts of the world. All he knew was his life in the river. And obviously he was with a school of many dozens of other fish that he was just swimming around with. Since he was born, he was swimming around with his family and friends. It was just like any other day. Completely normal day. Just swimming around under the current of the Ganga. When suddenly the claws of the talons of the hawk just ripped into him and ripped him right out of the only environment he ever knew. Similarly, Maharaj Yudhisthira, he was asked by the Yaksha, what is the greatest thing? What is the most inconceivable thing? The most wonderful thing? And Yudhisthira Maharaj said, everyone sees everyone is going to die, but no one really takes it to heart that it could happen to me at any moment. How many times have we heard of someone driving on the road just like any other day, and the hawk of fate changes his or her entire life? With crisis, tragedy, or death. We're sitting in a class and we get a phone call. Of course, all of you should have your cell phones off. But we have seen it. Phone call. The person we love most in life. Some tragedy or death. We were not expecting it. Some accident, some disease. How many ways can material nature at any moment just take you right out of your comfortable environment when you least expect it? It happens millions of times. If you take other species of life, It happens billions of times, every hour, every day. And we're just swimming along in the current, thinking, just like any day. But it is reality. The hawk of fate is right above us, with his glistening green eyes just scanning our environment. And at any moment, ready to pounce upon us and rip us out of the environment that we find shelter in. What could be the lesson of this? Perhaps that we should guard very carefully against complacency. Complacency means we think everything is just all right and everything will just go on as I expect it to go on. And we do not really put effort in to what we know we have to do. Procrastination is one of the most sad realities of human nature. We know it, for a devotee, we know what must be done. But somehow or other, we're just coasting in the current of our routine days, our routine weeks, our routine months, our routine years. And do we really, really try to cultivate the consciousness by which we can purely take shelter of the holy names? How to overcome this complacency is to prioritize the purpose of life in our life. Everything is vanishing around us. The only reality is our relationship with God. How are we making that a priority? Many of us know it should be the priority. But in our practical life, all the other fish around us and the current around us, just, yes, trying to go to the next stage. So Srila Prabhupada, when he would sit in our temples on his illustrious Vyasa-san, he would plead with us to understand the urgency of putting bhakti first in our life. Bhagavad Gita did not teach the world through Arjuna to neglect our occupational duties, our profession, our families. But Bhagavad Gita teaches us to perform our work with an understanding of the urgency of taking shelter of Krishna through whatever we do. That is the purpose. Bhagavad Gita doesn't just say, do your work. Bhagavad Gita says, do your work with the topmost priority to please Krishna. Otherwise, the Gita says that work done that is not as a sacrifice to Vishnu simply creates bondage in the laws of nature. But the Lord is so kind that while we know the hawk of fate is always hovering above us and all our loved ones and everyone else, He comes to teach us. Again and again and again, of where real shelter is to be found. Tomorrow, we will be celebrating the holy occasion of the appearance of Lord Sri Ramchandra, Ram Navami. In the morning, they have requested me to give class at Radha Bihari Temple. And then after the class, the deities of Sita, Ram, Lakshman and Hanuman that Srila Prabhupada personally arranged and commissioned to be there will have their Abhishekam. And at noon, the time of the appearance of Ram, there will be the auspicious Arti ceremony. And then to not create conflict between the two temple programs, we will be celebrating Ram Navami in the evening. Evening is nice because it doesn't create conflict. Also gives more time for everyone to cook offerings, and even those who go to work can attend. There are unlimited messages that Ram has taught us through his transcendental pastimes. Krishna tells in Gita, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yoveti tattvata jaktva deham punarajanma naiti mam eti sorajuna. That one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities never has to take birth in this material world again, but attains my eternal supreme abode. This morning, Govinda Prabhu was explaining in his very nice class that I was secretly listening to every word of. How the Vedas specifically teach us that in order to get the benefit of studying, one must have a guru, a spiritual master. Otherwise, it becomes something like an academic study. Or even if we have spiritual pursuits, with our own mind, we may adopt an interpretation that actually takes us away from the goal rather than closer to the goal. Or may take us closer, but only to a certain point. So Srila Prabhupada, who is coming from Parampara, by his explanation of what he has given us, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, we can understand so nicely. And Prabhupada told the stories of Ramayana. But even when we read Ramayana, when we read through the eyes and the ears and the heart that Prabhupada has given us, we can understand it as it is. We can actually experience what Ram is trying to tell us. It begins by revealing how no matter what you have, no matter who you are, happiness is not always a reality. Anandamayo Bhyashat. Everyone is seeking happiness. People get married for happiness. People have children for happiness. I was recently listening to a tape of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was in 1966 talking about the different types of liberation to a group in New York City. I believe it was 26 2nd Avenue. And he said there's 5 types of liberation. He said 4 of them are personal. Having the same bodily features of the Lord in the spiritual world, living on the same planet as the Lord, being a constant associate of the Lord. Like that. Having the same opulence as the Lord. Only one, Sayujya, is merging into the existence of the Lord. And he was explaining how a devotee never wants this Sayujya Mukti. But he said, from India, somehow or other, most people think that this is what liberation means. Brahman realization. It's only one of the 5. But people think that's what it is. And that's the only one that's rejected, really, by Vaishnavas. So one lady was asking, why you reject? What's wrong with it? And Prabhupada explained. He said, everyone is looking for happiness. The source of that is Krishna. He is Rasaraj. He is the supreme enjoyer. And Prabhupada explained how Krishna is the father and mother of every living being. Aham bija pratapita. And we are all expansions of Krishna. Part and parcels of Krishna. It's like the sun has unlimited sun rays that are qualitatively giving off heat and light, but are just tiny fragments of the sun that gives off unlimited, all heat and all light. So Prabhupada asked this lady, do you know why God creates unlimited living entities out of himself? Unlimited expansions, who are all his eternal servants? She said, no, why? He said, for one reason. For pleasure. The pleasure of love. That's why we're all created. And then Prabhupada explained, why does a husband and wife decide to have children? For one reason. Happiness. Yes? Somehow or other they think that this child's going to make them happy. Otherwise, why would you have children? You know there's all kinds of troubles and everything else, but still you think it's going to make me happy. So yes. So we have children because we want that loving exchange that will bring pleasure. So God, who is the Supreme, He has unlimited children for the purpose of that loving exchange. Now, Srila Prabhupada said, what if a son or a daughter comes up to his mother and says, I'm frustrated with life. I'm just disgusted with life. I just don't want to exist anymore. I want to merge into your womb. I don't like this world anymore. I've come from your womb. I want to merge back into your womb. This world is just too frustrating. Will the mother be happy by such a child? She'll be very unhappy. And also, the mother can't allow the child to merge in their womb either. But God is unlimited. So we're emanating from God. He is our mother and father. And He's telling us, your real home is in the spiritual world. With me and with all the devotees eternally. What are you doing here? But we engage in so many materialistic karmic activities. And then we become so frustrated. So we take to a path of spirituality when we say, Mother, I want to merge back in your womb. My Lord, I want to merge into you. And God, Krishna, He says, all right, if that's what you want, come. Brahman realization, come merge into me. But that's not where the real... Then there will be peace. There will be no suffering, which is blissful compared to materialistic struggle. But the real happiness that the soul is seeking is to go back home, back to Godhead, to the spiritual abode, where we can engage in the loving pastimes of the Lord. So the Lord comes to this world to teach so many lessons. But ultimately the culmination of all those lessons, if we hear Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Upanishads, if we hear any of the Vedic literatures from the proper sources, from the highest proper sources, then the conclusion is to love Krishna. Vedaishta serveraham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavadeva chaham. Krishna says, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and by all the Vedas I am to be known. In fact, the Srimad Bhagavatam teaches, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasized, that a devotee is not interested in any of the 5 types of liberation. Isn't even concerned with having bodily features like the Lord eternally, having the same opulences, living on the same planet, being the constant associate. Devotee is not concerned with any of those. A pure devotee simply wants to serve in any situation, according to the Lord's will. Narayana Parayana Sudulabha Prasantatma Kotishwapi Mahamune. The Lord Shiva said about Chitraketu Maharaj, just see Parvati Devi, just see. This is the quality of a pure Vaishnava. Doesn't care anything about him or herself. Is only concerned with serving the Lord and pleasing the Lord. Swarga Pavarga Narakeshu. Whether the devotee is in heaven or whether the devotee is in hell, it's not his interest. Wherever the Lord wants him to serve, he's grateful, happy, and blissful to serve. That is the highest transcendental plane. the gopis of Vrindavan. If Krishna has a headache, they're willing to put the dust of their feet on his head. And if it means, for that offense, going to hell for millions or billions of years, they don't mind suffering in hell if it will give some pleasure to Krishna. Now, would Krishna allow such a devotee to go to hell? Vasudev Dutt understood that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission was to give love of God to the people of this world. So he prayed to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let all their karma come on me. I'll go to hell. I'll suffer hellish conditions for any amount of time, but let all of them be with you, happy, liberated. Lord Chaitanya cried. He said, you are Prahlad Maharaj. You are speaking with such compassion. Why would the Lord allow you to go to hell when you're giving everything for Him? The Lord will liberate the whole universe just on the basis of your desire. And Krishna told gopis, when they took so many risks going into forest, giving up their social position, causing so much anxiety to their loved ones, they didn't want to do that. They were soft-hearted, loving ladies. But they took such risk of enduring so much pain, humiliation, and disgrace just to give pleasure to Krishna. And Krishna reciprocated. He said, I cannot pay you back with all the wealth of all the material and spiritual worlds. I cannot repay you, even in an entire lifetime of Lord Brahma. Just be happiness with that love that you feel in your own heart. Dasarat was the emperor of the world. His capital was Ayodhya. And Valmiki in his Ramayana explains the unbelievable wealth, opulence, and happiness of Ayodhya. There's nothing like it today. Neither Washington, D.C., or New Delhi, or Lahore, or Moscow. No capital city is like Ayodhya. First of all, everything was clean. For those of you who are proud about Bombay, I think I told you, I saw a survey by some international agency, and of all the cities in the world, Bombay is, what, seven? Number 7, as far as the 7th dirtiest city in the world. And to further crush your pride, Delhi was number 24. And Calcutta is so clean, it wasn't even on the list. It only showed the first dirtiest 25 cities. So everything was beautiful. Ivory walls in his palace, ivory furniture, was lit with emeralds and diamonds and rubies and jewels, millions and millions of them everywhere. Practically like what we use by building with cement, they use diamonds, emeralds, rubies, and sapphires. It's beautiful. And everybody is well dressed. There's no poverty. Everybody's happy. Everybody's employed. Everybody has very sattvic work. Everybody's very kind to each other. Everybody has faith in God. The king is just providing everything for his citizens. And because everyone was so pious, Mother Nature was just providing everything in abundance. And he was heroic. He had no challengers of other kings. Everything was so fine. But he looked out his window in complete anxiety. He was the most miserable man. Because despite having all the wealth and the power of an emperor, and a healthy body, and everything was going his way, one thing didn't work. He had no son. Now as a king, in the solar dynasty, there was Bibhiswan, Manu, Ikshvaku. From that time, there was a line of kings who were all sons of the original king. If he didn't have a son that he could coronate as the next king before he retired, then he was completely failing in his most important of all duties. And it was just like a dagger in his heart, causing him so much misery and pain. He approached the Brahmins, he wanted to do yajnas, he was doing so many things. That subject we will discuss tomorrow. But it is a lesson. Whoever you are, whatever you may be, still, that hawk is there to cause you to suffer. And it's very powerful. Unless we take shelter of the Lord. Because Krishna doesn't say that if you surrender to me, then this material world will be a nice place. Krishna says, Abramabhavana loka punar avartanorjana mamupete tukonteya punar janmana vidyate. From the highest planet to the lowest, they're all places where you have to die. They're all places of suffering. Krishna consciousness is not the art of worshiping God so that you could be happy in material life. Krishna consciousness teaches the only real happiness, which means to transcend material life. Even if the hawk grabs you, like the little fish, and takes you out of the water, you can't even breathe. And he's just flying higher and higher. And you know he's going to eat you. Yes, that could happen. Devotee, not devotee. But if you're Krishna conscious, you could be happy, even in that situation. You could be happy. Knowing, so nice, I'm going back to Godhead. And you chant the holy names.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Just like Prabhupada gave example of the kitten and the rat. The rat is in the mouth of a cat and sees the cat as death personified. The kitten is in the same mouth and sees the cat as a most loving, protective mother. So even death, even the most difficult situation, for one who has not taken shelter, it's very inconceivable, very painful. But for one who takes shelter, whatever situation, we know it's just going to bring me closer to the Lord if I just remember Him with faith and chant His holy names. So Dasarath Maharaj paid a price. But because he turned to the great sages and he worshipped the Lord, through that anxiety, the Supreme Personality of Godhead became his son. Devaki and Vasudeva also. It wasn't easy. They were in prison. 6 of their children were killed. The 7th one appeared to be a miscarriage. The 8th one was Krishna, because they never gave up their faith. But the same night that Krishna was born, Krishna said, "Take me away. Bring me over to Nanda Maharaj's house in Gokul." So they performed such tapasya for so many years and endured so many heartbreaks to get Krishna. And the same night, Krishna left them and didn't come back for about over 10 years. Krishna is so merciful. And for that whole 10 years, they were still captive by Kamsa the whole time. It was very difficult. Similarly, finally, Ram is born on Ram Navami, along with Bharat, Lakshman, Satrughna. Can you imagine the joy of Dasarath, Kausalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi, and everyone in Ayodhya? Just looking at Ramchandra was the ultimate happiness. But then one day Vishwamitra Muni comes. Yes?